This is Anthony Alex from the Angry Mailman podcast, and you're listening to another fine show from the From Page to Screen Media Empire.
Hey guys, this is Ace Marrero from the movie Madison County.
Hi, this is David L.G. Hughes, writer-director of the film Hall Bowl Suites.
I love the pace and the fastness, and I love the fact that you just roll with it.
Hi, I'm Eric England, the director of Contracted.
Hi, I'm J.K. Amanu, the writer-director of Deviation.
My name is Nathan Whitehead, and I wrote the music for Beyond Skyline.
Hello, Stuart. Just a quick hello from Sarah Douglas.
Hi, this is Ben Lloyd Holmes from the film The Expedition.
This is Dominic Burns, the director of Allies.
Hey, Stuart. PageToScreen.com up in my bunk. Snake, get up with my motorcycle running and tracking over with my fucking snake. Jamie's with Dom, eating pizza and pussy.
I'm Neil Johnson. I directed Road Warrior and The Time War, and I crucified Adolf Hitler.
The From Page to Screen movie cast.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You are welcome. Thanks for being on the show. I'm guessing all filmmakers are stuck in their houses now.
Yeah. Honestly, I've been telling people to try and I think the biggest thing we can do to get through this is try and keep it, creatively productive as much as possible, whether that's writing your next script or talking about our movies in this case. But I'm happy we're keeping all creatively busy in this case, yourself including.
Me too. I don't know how long you've been in lockdown where you are. We're just starting our third week block.
Wow.
So we've just had ours extended.
I feel like I've been here 3 weeks. Honestly, I've been very lucky. Italy, I'm from Italy, and my family started this, as you probably know. Italy started a couple weeks before. So whether it was advice or foreseeable incidents, I feel like we got the insight from Italy in regards to how this was going to go down. And we were a little more equipped when we did. But again, I think what matters is staying busy as much as possible, whether it's the luxury of having a job and working from home or just trying to make the most of it. Otherwise, you can really, really go insane.
How are your family in Italy? Are they doing okay, though?
Yes, we're doing a little better. I don't want to lie. We had a family member who was affected, but, I think these kind of periods just they bring families together. So luckily, nobody has passed, and we talk to each other way more often than we do, and we're lucky to have one another. So thank you for asking, though. Thank you.
Because we're living in strange times now. Because I'm pretty sure you've watched hundreds and thousands of films in your lifetime. I know I have, and we've seen these sort of storylines before. So to be in one is really, really weird.
It seems like it's life imitating art and art imitating life.
It does. I mean, my partner, she was asking me the other day, she was saying, is this the scariest thing you've ever lived through? And I said, well, yes, and it probably is for most of us. But I remember when I was a child, I was about 15, I think, when the Chernobyl accident happened. Now, I'm originally from Scotland, so it was kind of parallel to sort of Chernobyl type thing. And I remember being at school and everybody's like, oh, look at the clouds are coming and we're all going to get it and all that sort of stuff. I mean, you look back on it now and you go, maybe that wasn't too accurate, but as a 15-year-old kid or whatever, that probably was the scariest thing I think I lived through. But I see a lot of people on social media and the creative people are being wonderfully creative. The only flip side, if you're not being creative, you can sit and watch the news all day and just feel really miserable and not into that.
There's this amazing quote from this Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie called 50-50. It kind of sticks with me, and it says, when you can't change your situation, you can still change how you deal with it. Yes. So I think on one end, the fact that obviously in our micro communities, we can definitely affect it. We can be safe, not just for ourselves and others, but when it comes to the world, I just feel like you're right. Like watching the news definitely doesn't help. Getting bummed down definitely doesn't help. So trying to spread positivity and these kind of messages, I think, is the best thing we can do.
Because I know for the first couple of weeks of lockdown, because I'm also fortunate enough to be able to work from home as well in my nighttime job, which will start back again tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's not a media job, but it pays bills and allows me to do bits and pieces. But I had no inclination to write anything or be creative for the first week. It's like, I'm kind of weird. I don't normally go out a lot anyway, but being told I'm not allowed to, it's like, oh, I want to go outside now. It's weird, but thankfully the creative side of things came back last week and went, hi, how are you? Write stuff, edit stuff, tweet lots, this, that, and the other. So I'm glad to have that back, but I am trying to be positive while this lockdown lasts.
And I feel like these conversations definitely help. So again, that's why I'm grateful that you're taking the time to call in.
I'm grateful for Nightfire, I might add. I only watched it a couple of hours ago because I always like to watch it, and it's purely fresh in my mind before I have a conversation. There's nothing worse than going, what was that bit? I can't quite. It was a couple of weeks ago when I watched that. So oh, sorry, I got the films mixed up. That ain't good. That's not good what I do. But it's, and I've been sat for an hour thinking, how do I phrase it without it sounding bad? And it's not bad. That's why I'm struggling for it. But generally, with a short film, your brain thinks, I know roughly what I'm going to say. I know roughly what sort of production value I'm going to get. Nightfire kind of blows it all out of the water. That is an incredibly beautiful film, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, and I wonder if it's the length time too. You know, I'm sure we could talk about it, but I think that the beauty, I don't know if you knew, but you know, many people started watching it, and it's not really a 10-minute short. It's not an hour and a half feature. The fact that there's more time than you expect it to be may guarantee, even from a structural level, you feel like literally anything can happen in the story as things are unfolding, because nothing is, necessarily the ending. The final punch is not going to come right away. A lot of things are going to happen between the beginning and the end of it.
Because it's wonderfully cinematic, which is great, but I know it's like when people have said to me, and I'm not comparing myself to you because I'm still in the process of putting together my short films, which are short, I might add. But people go, oh, what are you working on? You go, I'm working on a short film. And you go, oh, okay. There seems to be this weird stigma for short films. And I am now looking forward to using Nightfire as something that just knocks that out the way. It's like, watch that. It's 45 minutes. Yes, it's classed as a short film. But was there ever an intention of doing that feature length, or it feels like it could either be feature length or a pilot for a TV series that I really want to watch?
Yeah, great question. I think, listen, here's the thing. The script was about 55 pages, which would have translated into almost an hour. Still not really a feature, but close to a feature. And a lot of people trying to talk us out of it. They said, you guys are nuts. You should either go longer or shorter. You're wasting it. I think the TV pilot comparison you made is absolutely accurate. There is, on a storytelling level, there's a reason we leave things open-ended. We promise more adventures to come while also completing a full story that we present. I just feel like stories deserve to be as long as they want. You go out and you shoot this thing, and we assembled it, and the first cut was like an hour and 5 minutes. And we chopped it way down because honestly, it just felt watered down. And even if we ended up with a 45 minute film, it's what Gore Verbinski always talks about. You shoot a movie, you edit it, and then at some point in the post-production process, the movie takes on a life of its own and it tells you what it wants to be, You don't control it. It controls you in the best positive way. So I felt that even though you're right, we should have, made it into a feature because we took the time to go all the way to Italy. We shot this entire film in 12 days, which may sound like a lot of time, but I promise you with the action bits, like sometimes we would shoot entire, sequences that take 5 minutes in the finished movie in a single morning, and other bits of like 20 seconds of a car chase would be spread out over the course of 4 or 5 nights. So, I just felt like at the end it was our job to deliver the best experience for audiences, and that beyond that, the film would work out on its own in regards to connecting with people and hopefully expanding to a larger universe if need be.
Well, you've nailed it. You really have. I mean, you mentioned that it was a 12-day shoot. Now, to 12-day shoot for a 45-minute film, that to me it doesn't sound like a lot of time. And then when you put into the mix, you have got all sorts of, I won't go spoilers at all, but you've got all sorts of action set pieces and effects sort of things going on. This isn't 45 minutes of two people sitting in a cafe having a conversation, is it? There's a lot. Yeah. There is a lot in there for the 12 days, and there's a lot in there for the 45 minutes as well.
Absolutely.
So it's like even from the opening credit sequence, I'm like, wow, because you have this thing. I have this thing anyway, where I see a lot of short films, and short films are, I think, generally used as calling cards, which a lot of people say. They go, look what I've done, blah, 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 and they move on. But this, definitely, I'm going to go back to a phrase I used before. It kind of blew my mind.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you so much for saying that. It was definitely the best film school. I mean, this entire thing started because we were sitting in, as many film students are lucky to do, you get to the end of the year where they're doing the famous thesis screenings, the graduating class is presenting their work, and you sit down and you're blown away because then we were at a school that just encouraged genre, and I feel like genre filmmaking is something we have responded to from the get-go. So you'll get to see a Western and a space movie and a gay musical, like all these different things. And I think we just wanted to do something that as audience members would have blown us away. And we went there, and honestly, even though we planned and we worked extra hard, as you can imagine, we didn't, believe it or not, like we didn't have as much money as one you would think we did. We wrote the movie around the resources we had at our disposal. So we made a list, whether it was locations, vehicles, actors, businesses, we just listed these out and said, what is the most emotional and organic and authentic story we can write to bring us, not us, but bring the characters from point A to B to C and D. And even once we're doing that, it's just, again, you don't really know what's going to happen. And to me, and I'm grateful for all the education we received, but there's nothing that can prepare you. And there's nothing like getting there and you feel like in your mind you've worked out what it looks like to shoot a car chase. But then the reality of having to work with special effects crews and stunts, which were the two departments we did not want to save money on, and we did not want to have amateurs. Like those were the two departments, and you may find the common link is safety. We don't want to play around with that. And in order for the movie to feel expensive and feel professional, we needed true professionals in those two departments specifically. Everything else was kids. Like it was honestly a bunch of 20-year-olds. I was, 21, 22 at the time. And we would be, they were sleeping in sleeping bags in the living room. And we spent weeks and weeks like that, eating homemade meals and getting 3-4 hours of sleep a night. But the adrenaline of looking at the footage as it's coming back, we all gather and watch it on a laptop. Oh, look at what we did today. That just keeps you going. And that to me is the purest form of low budget filmmaking, even on in a movie like this.
Now I'm looking at your filmography, which is huge, I might add. So well done on pretty much you seem to wear a lot of hats. Which is good. I
think it's good. It's very good. I think you should be smart enough to surround yourself with people who are way better than you in every regard. Department heads are, I cannot stress how important every single aspect of filmmaking is. And if you want, we can get into the sound process, but sound is incredibly important on a movie like this because anything we couldn't bring home on a visual level, let's say you did not have as many extras as you wanted, you did not get that line of dialogue, all of that you can bring back with sound. But I think it's important, we look at the filmmakers we admire the most, and they know just as much about the other department heads, about their business, because I think the dialogue, if you talk to your sound mixer and you're using basic generic terms, you're not able to have as extensive and creative a dialogue as you could if you knew exactly what you were talking about in regards to tools, plugins, all those technical things that allow him or her to look at you as a creative partner as opposed to something, someone that can't really communicate what they're trying to get to. So I think that definitely helps. You're right.
There was one little, you mentioned the sound where if you can't get the visual, you do it with audio. There was only one instance where, and I must have just caught it, and it wasn't a glitch. Don't start panicking. It was, there was one scene where somebody had fired a weapon off screen and they walked into it, and I'm like, yeah, because I'm paying attention to a lot of sound things now, putting my own stuff together. I'm trying to learn from everybody. And I'm like, I like that. There was no need to see the gun go off, but in my brain, I saw it go off. I saw the muzzle flash and everything, and then the character walks into screen. I'm thinking, that is impressive audio work, because it totally convinced me.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, again, like, honestly, I think it's good. Trust me, I'm not always pleased with the work we do. I think being unsatisfied, and I always talk about challenge the material. You know, I feel like I've been extremely lucky in the last few years to learn from filmmakers who I truly admire. You know, the Mission Impossible franchise is definitely one I always talk about. And anyone from, the first AD, Tommy Gormley, who is Scottish, by the way, to, the stunt coordinator, I hear from those guys that the way they work on the Mission Impossible movies, these last ones specifically with Christopher McQuarrie, is that they literally finish a day of shooting. They, Tom Cruise and McQuarrie and the first AD go, and the editor sometimes, they literally go to a room the night before instead of going to bed. They look at the screenplay for the next day and they say, okay, out of these 2.5 pages, like, is this the best scene we can write? Is this the best, and always challenge the material, not just in a production phase, but in this case, walking home and having a movie edited. And then the sound is like another way of rewriting that, from a gunshot to the line of dialogue, because somebody says, oh, I'm not quite clear what happens in that scene. Could you explain it? You, like a surgeon, you go very methodically, you insert lines of dialogue, and that is done very often. But again, it's about narrative and emotional clarity. Every single thing we're doing for the audience experience. So it goes beyond what we think the movie should be and what it ultimately is. And audience members, if you're lucky enough to test the movie, and I highly encourage anyone who's doing even a short film, test it, not just to your parents, who are obviously going to be very kind, but
yeah, it's the best film I've ever seen.
Best film ever, honey. But it's like, I often, because this is tricky, so a lot of people ask me, is like, how the hell can I show a movie to a friend and get honest feedback? Because sometimes they're not going to be as harsh as you wish they were. And obviously you should take it, because it's not about you, it's about the movie. So what I often do is that I change, whether it's a screenplay I'm asking a friend to read, or a movie I'm asking a friend to watch. I'll lie to them, I'll change the credits and say that somebody else did it. I'll be like, hey, I got this thing, I don't know what to do with it. They asked me to give them some feedback. I'm not quite sure. What do you think? And they'll go down harshly on it. But it's like, the more flaws you can expose about the movie, any movie, before you wrap it up, the better. So again, in a positive way, in a creative way, because there's so much creativity to find at every single step of the way, but challenge the material. And the movie deserves, the best version of the movie deserves to come to the surface, whether you're able to, pinpoint it out or not. So try to expose those problems as soon as possible, as much as possible.
That is such a smart way about changing the credit. I will use that at some point.
Do it.
Because you do. It's like, I've shown my teaser trailer to a few friends and they're like, wow, it's amazing. You go, well, I think it's kind of cool, but I don't know if it's amazing. I'm hoping it's good, but yeah, because they're never going to turn around and go, oh, it's your first film. That's terrible. Why are you making it? Just sell your cameras. Get rid of it. It's awful.
No.
What's the matter with you? They're never going to do that. Hopefully they won't do that. But yeah, you need to be able to get that honesty. But I love that thing you've suggested. I will.
Yeah, it's tricky. I feel like note giving in general, whether you receive it or you give it, I think the good rule that we learned was, like, even if you're going to go down harshly on someone in regards to what you think of their work, I bet you there's always something good you can say about something to be found in a product. So being able to, I'm not going to say match, because if you're going to make 10 comments, doesn't mean that 5 of them should be positive and 5 negative. But I promise you, if you begin by finding true, honest thoughts of positive feedback in something, the person listening is kind of going to ease up and say, you know what, they do recognize some goodness in him. I do agree with what they're saying. So even though they're going to lay down some harsh criticism, it's probably coming from a real place, whether I agree with it or not. So yeah, absolutely. Go feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I review films. Generally, my background's from a publicity point of view. I've been a film fan since I was a kid, went to, and then I've fallen into this wonderful geek world where I get to speak to filmmakers. I've got the website, the podcast, and all sorts. So I do review a lot of films, and I'll never say I like a film if I didn't. So that's one of the I'll never go, oh, this is the best film I've ever seen, when I'm secretly thinking, this was terrible. I absolutely hated this film when I watch it again. And I will always find the good in a film because it's not easy making a movie.
You're absolutely right.
As anybody who's ever made one knows. And I have given less than positive reviews, but they've always had a positive spin to them. And I think maybe only 3 or 4 I've done in the past few years where it's a case of, I really didn't like that film, but I'm not gonna hammer it. And the filmmakers have still come back and said, thank you very much for your review, where I was expecting them to come back and go, I'm never speaking to you ever again. But as you said, there is good in every single movie, even the ones that I really don't like, which I can't remember any because I don't tend to dwell on the bad ones. But
yeah, usually we forget about those. But still, I think it's very nice. As you said, nobody sets out to make a bad movie. No. The same way we've talked about the fact that there are 1,000 opportunities along the pre-production, production, and post-production to improve on a movie. I think every step of the way is also a risk you're running. I think there is such a thing. I honestly forgot what movie it was, but I was watching a movie the other day, and I was like, this is so well shot, and the editing is awful. And it's not to criticize, but it's like, that to me is why the best movies come together in an incredible way. Think of your favorite movie. Anyone listening right now, chances are that every single department head, working on that movie was just firing all cylinders. It's as if the stars aligned and the producer or the director hired a group of people who were all speaking the same language, and that's a miracle. Likewise, you can have in a movie, you can hire 10 good people, and if the costume designer or the editor, like we said, doesn't speak the same language or tries to impose their own vision of it, unfortunately, you can take something that could have been good and turn it into. So again, as you said, nobody sets out to make a bad movie, and it's hard, especially as movies like these with action and all that kind of stuff. I feel like hopefully it comes across as a labor of love, because whenever we're shooting in the Italian winter and it's genuinely like 25, 30 degree Fahrenheit, which is like negative in a Celsius scale, and I was there and I was just like thinking to myself, you're an idiot. Why the hell did you have to write the car flips and crashes and explodes in the middle of the street? It would have been so much easier if it was interior, day. So, but again, it's all about the labor of love for the audience. So not just for us, but your favorite movies, like they are all of this. I feel like making movies in general is a very noble. I can't include myself in that because I feel like we have so much to do still. But I'm grateful to all of the greatest filmmakers because their job is to literally entertain. We started this conversation talking about what a difficult time it is for the world right now. And imagine if there were no movies. Imagine if there were no podcasts or TV shows. All of these are labors of love and creativity. And that's why I think it's so exciting for everyone.
Well, you said you can't add yourself to that list, Brando, but I can. I can add you to my list. So you're on it, sir.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, what is your favourite movie? Mine's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I think everybody on that was firing on all cylinders. So I'm chucking that one into the mix. What's yours?
I honestly remember, by the way, when and where I watched Close Encounters. So I think that's a special memory when you can sometimes recall. Listen, I feel like it's hard to pinpoint one favorite. I feel like I got a handful, and it goes anything from David Fincher's Zodiac to Singing in the Rain from 1952. Yeah. I feel like different movies speak to us for different reasons. And yeah, so I would say Birdman, probably those three, Birdman, Singing in the Rain, and David Fincher's Zodiac couldn't be more different. And I think I see parts of myself in them for different reasons. But yeah, we're just I like movies.
and all three of those have very, very clever camera work in them as well. Singing in the Rain, obviously for obvious reasons. Zodiac, gorgeous film. So yeah, and Birdman, enough said. Very clever.
I think camera moving especially. Now that he pointed it out, I went back. I try to watch Singing in the Rain at least once or twice a year. And same I was able to do with Zodiac. But I think that what you pinpointed is something that people don't ask us enough about. But I think it's the reason Nightfire owes so much to the cinematography by Garrett Nicholson. Like once we realized we had to shoot the movie in 12 days, we decided to shoot pretty much the entire film on a Steadicam because we didn't have the time to put sticks down so very often. And it goes from Garrett Nicholson, who operates his own camera, hanging outside of a truck, with a Steadicam, to two people in a room talking. I honestly can't remember of a moment where we had a tripod. It was always Garrett working out. I told him weeks in advance, you better start practicing and lifting weights because you're going to be holding that camera up for a very long time. Sometimes we're doing, 14, 15-hour days where Garrett's a saint and running around up and down the stage and in and out of cars. And I think camera movement is one of the ways you can make a movie feel sophisticated when done right. And I think the best, filmmakers, as you mentioned, Spielberg specifically is of all the filmmakers, maybe the one who taught us the most in regards to when you're running out of time, which often happened to us, and you have so many different angles you got to cover. I apologize. I'm going very specific and technical right now.
No, it's fine. Fascinating. Don't worry. Yep.
It gets me excited, but it's like you're running out of time to shoot a scene and you have a shot list sometimes and you're supposed to get a close-up of a phone and the close-up of a face and then a two-shot of these people. And Spielberg, if you study, movies like Bridge of Spies, he is not afraid of going within the same shot. The frame renews itself and it starts as a master, then it goes into a close-up, then it goes into a two-shot, and then it turns around and goes back into a close-up. And by renewing the frame, number one, I think it's just very, very clever filmmaking, and it feels it's confident directing, because the thing is, like, once you shoot scenes or portions of scenes in oneers, you can go back and fix that in editing. If you're committed, Birdman is a great example of that. It's good to sometimes shoot a take where you do twice as fast or twice as slow, just in case, to have options. But that's something we would very often do in Nightfire because we would be running out of time constantly in regards to overscheduling scenes or underscheduling scenes and being like, okay, we don't have time. We got to try and combine this thing. And it, sometimes it works out great.
So 12 days to shoot. How long to edit?
Great question. So yeah, we shot this over Christmas. And let's just say, I'm not going to go into sound because sound, honestly, took a very long time. There was an initial version of the movie that we presented to some people, and then we came back. And right now, so today is mid-April. Yep. And I would say we started doing the sound in November. Like, since November, we've been relentlessly working on the sound. But let's say we wrap in the second week of January. I would say we wrap the movie just on a picture level. So no more editing after May, Wow. So this is obviously, we're not talking about this year, but we had about 13 weeks to edit the movie, which may sound like a lot, but I promise you it wasn't. And I think as a process, it taught us a lot. We couldn't hire an editor. So we ended up editing the movie ourselves, which I don't always recommend, frankly, because sometimes, you often talk about kill your darlings, and sometimes we will be reluctant to cutting a scene because we had gone through a lot of physical pain to get it, and that shouldn't matter because the audience doesn't know that, doesn't know if you're freezing or spent, $500 extra on something. So if it helps the story, it stays in. If it doesn't, it goes out. But we literally spent 13 weeks locked in a basement, working nonstop. And our deadline was a thesis screening, a student thesis screening we were working our way towards. But once we did that and we locked the color, then we took a little bit of time to do the sound because, again, it's easier and definitely less expensive to open a project back up and fix the sound than it would be to tweak the picture.
Yeah. Well, my first documentary was about Comic-Con, which I noticed you were in TED too. One of the Comic-Con attendees.
Listen, you learn a lot. We were lucky enough. I went back to the Fox studio a lot last month for something, and I was walking in front of the soundstage where we shot that scene. And honestly, it wasn't mind blowing. We weren't, but I've also been very lucky to work on The Dark Knight Rises. And these are not neither TED or Dark Knight Rises are an experience where you want to be an actor or you want to be an extra. But being on film set that scale and watching, whether it's Seth MacFarlane, then Christopher Nolan. I've been very lucky. I was on a Ridley Scott set for one day, working thanks to friends who brought me along. But there's no better film school than being on a film set. Aside from anything you can study. I remember we were shooting the stadium scene in Dark Knight Rises when Bane blows up the stadium. And I could not care less about being on camera. All I cared about was being as close to the monitor as possible. And literally, specifically because who the first AD is, and you know who the cinematographer is, Wally Pfister and Nolan, and you just watch the way they work. Okay, we've been here for 45 minutes on this setup. Why are they choosing to stay this long? Why are they moving on? What are the conversations? And even with Ridley Scott, I was lucky enough to be even closer to him and literally look at the way he works. He has a very economical way of shooting movies where it takes them forever to set up a scene. And then they shoot the same take from 4 different cameras. Not even 2, 4 different angles shooting at the same time. And then he does 1, 2, 3 takes, and that's it. And they move on, So it's like watching how everyone works on such a different level. Like MacFarlane is yelling out jokes with the microphone and texting, Everyone's process couldn't be more different. And that, I take a lot of value in that because it's a continued education in regards to the way we approach film. The next one is going to be different from the last one, and so on and so forth.
Can I ask which Ridley Scott film it was?
Yes. So it was this movie called All the Money in the World. Yes. You may remember it was the one with Kevin Spacey getting replaced. And speaking about economical, by the way, we were there in mid-June. We were shooting outside of – I'm saying I had nothing to do, but they were shooting outside of Rome. And I was only there for a day or two. But they wrapped the movie, from my understanding, at the end of August, and they were supposed to premiere in mid-November, which obviously got canceled, and they went back and they reshot it. But that blows my mind in regards to someone like Spielberg sometimes who's able to do 2 movies at a time. So it kind of blows your mind. We spoke about 13 weeks of editing for us, but think about someone on that level who finishes shooting a movie at the end of August, and they were going to premiere in the middle of November if this unfortunate recasting situation hadn't gone on. But that blows my mind. That's all education. That's all film school to me.
Yep. So, what was I going to say? So you look at Ridley, you look at Chris Nolan, you look at Seth MacFarlane. How do you yourself, Brando, find your directing style? Is that just instinct? You go, right, this is how I'm going to direct, and then you learn little bits from other people, or how do you go about that?
I'm going to butcher the quote, but there was an amazing quote by this musician who was like, study your skills, and when it's time to perform, forget everything, I feel like filmmaking is a similar thing in regards to when it comes to a directing style. I honestly feel like it's not something you can be conscious of. I really truly, and I try and stay away from anything close to the term artist because I really don't see myself or most starting out directors as anything close to that. But even when it comes to coming to finding your voice, I feel like it's something where you shoot, and then years later you turn back and you find a common pattern. You look at all the short films you've made and you're like, holy crap, all of them are about marriage or dogs or whatever it is. So You become conscious of the fact that dogs or marriage filmmaking is a way for you to elaborate emotion and your own human experiences. And most times you don't realize that, that's a common pattern. And I feel like a similar way is, in regards to a style, I've definitely begun picking up little technical things, so if you were to analyze it, I feel like we love using wider lenses. We love it. We talked about merging scenes. I think I admire when I'm looking at movies and an entire scene is shot in a oneer. We mentioned Spielberg. You could look at James Mangold is another amazing director where it's just confident. You're literally in the hands of a confident director, a good storyteller who's taking you through the emotion of a movie, as opposed to, and this is, all due respect, there's nothing wrong with this, but a lot of people like to shoot a lot of footage from a lot of different angles, and then you go in the editing room and you try and, piece it all together. A good movie can come out of that, but I would disagree with the fact that they knew exactly what was going to come out of it. You hear of Hitchcock, for example, shooting only parts of dialogue that he knows he's going to need in the editing. He says, hey, Jimmy Stewart, start midway through the scene or stop there because I'm not going to need the rest. I already have edited the footage in my mind. I know exactly what this movie is going to be like. So it's still like something you discover along the way. I feel like I have a lot of learning to do, but I genuinely get a kick out of analyzing other people's work, much like myself, and always asking, how could we have made it better? And you can only get better by making mistakes and falling on your face flat time and time and time and time again. So I embrace, all the messing up that you do. And there was a lot of it, honestly, on this movie in regards to resources that might have been wasted, decisions. You can only learn the lessons once you're exposed, a mirror is held up to you and saying, this is the scene that you chose to shoot, and this is how you could have shot it. But you'll only realize that months later when you feel like it's too late. And that's okay. That to me is exciting because you'll have a chance tomorrow to go back and make another movie and improve on that mistake, make a different decision.
It's like you've been watching over my shoulder for the past year and a half with this. I'm like, yep, did that. I'm getting a little tick sheet here going, yep, I did that one. Yep, oh, I did that one too. Yep, I'm hoping I'll do that one.
I think that's exactly right. It's like I often, and I've been lucky being in LA, I've been working a lot as an assistant director on other people's movies. Sometimes I would, work a lot as a first assistant director. Sometimes I would take a step down and I would go working as a second assistant director just to work on larger movies. And I was lucky enough to, second assistant director sometimes helped a lot with background and, vehicles and extras and all those things. And allowing yourself to be, this is going to sound very crude and I mean no disrespect, but sometimes you work on other people's movies to witness these mistakes and watch people fail and learn from them, because sometimes they don't know they're making a mistake, but you do. You can point it out, you may not. But it's like, to me, as you are talking about checking these infinite amount of boxes of mistakes, fail often and fail hard, because you're going to become a better filmmaker having gone through all these experiences. And the next time you're on a film set and somebody brings up that idea, if you have gone through the mistake already, you can raise your hand and you can say, listen, I can see why you want to do this, but let me tell you why it's not going to work. If we do this, this and this is going to happen. And they're like, oh my God, I had never considered it. How could we not have thought about it? Or vice versa. Some people point it out to me, but that to me is the exciting part. The reason it's not, as you've mentioned, it's not only about directing your own things, but working on a lot of different levels. Assistant directing, I think still comes within that. I see a lot of directors who appreciate having an assistant director who has directing experience, because you can come in it and find creativity and try and help them out. You're a lot of great assistant directors, but it's expose yourself to all kinds of filmmaking on film sets, because I think it's all beautiful.
Same. I mean, before I even started deciding to make a film, which I kind of fell into, I would just devour DVD commentaries.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Hundreds of them. I just listened to them. I've not listened to many lately, but I ended up ripping them to MP3 and listening to them on the way to work and before I would go to sleep.
That's amazing.
loads. And that was my sort of first film school. And then I decided to do a documentary experience in Comic-Con, which kind of fell out of a bunch of mistakes. I ended up Q&A panel hosting at some smaller Comic-Cons, and I thought I'd make a film about that, but then that fell apart because my cameraman went out for lunch for 3 hours and didn't film anything that I was doing. So, where do you go? So I thought, how do I end it? Well, I'll go to San Diego. Let's do this. And that took me out there. And then you'd mentioned it's not wise doing your own editing sometimes. I fell into that problem because I had a 4-hour work print, which is not good for a documentary, because it had 45 minutes of Oliver Stone in it. I'm like, Oliver Stone, I've got him on camera. This is great. I need to keep it in. And then I realized maybe not everybody wants to watch 45 minutes of that or 30. So I ended up cutting it down to like 1 hour and 10, and it's cool. I'm very happy with it. But I learned a lot from that, and then decided to try and do the narrative thing. And I've done a lot of the things that you said. You make those mistakes. Well, I won't do that on the second one. And then I made a few on the second film. And when I do the third one, I won't make as many mistakes. So it's, you've prophesized my entire filmmaking journey. So it's good to know that other people do it as well.
Documentary is hard, especially because it's like you don't really have full control of the narrative. So I think it refines. I honestly don't have as much documentary experience as I wish I did, but it refines you as a storyteller. You don't have all the ingredients in the world. You don't write your own recipe. You literally are handed something and say, okay, how do I blend things that don't seem to be working together and still create a story that is entertaining and has a through line? It feels like it was made by someone who's in control of the narrative. So I really do admire that.
You can't go to the entire Hall H sort of mob going, right, can we just all do that again, please? Because I didn't quite press record at the moment I was supposed to. They wouldn't work. So, but let's talk about your cast for Nightfire. You've got an amazing cast. This is not a small cast for a short film, which again blows the myth of short movies. Short movies have like 5 people in them. This one doesn't. Yeah. This is a huge cinematic film that happens to be not as long as a feature-length film. That's probably... Yeah, that's how I sum it up. But you've got some great cast members in there. Let's talk about some of them.
Yeah, so we're extremely lucky. And I would, honestly, to me, part of it was like definitely... So we shot it in Italy because obviously, aside from the production value of it, I've talked about how we wrote around the resources we had, but I knew we needed to have a mostly American cast simply because, the story deserved to be reaching an international audience in general. And we were very, very lucky. We have an international cast with, Dylan Baker and Lorenzo Pizzoni and Becky Baker and Bradley Stryker. And every single one of them, honestly, came into the project in different ways. Much like you were talking about the mistake we're sometimes confronted with, things would fall into place or out of place in the least expected moments. I feel like sometimes the same way casting directors make a mental note. I have friends who tell me sometimes who are actors and they say, they brought me in the room, but I didn't get that one job, but they called me back 3 months later for something completely different because they remembered. So people like Bradley Stryker, who plays politician George Williams, I saw him in a movie that a friend of mine did, and I made a mental note, and there you go. Months later, I thought of him out of the blue, and I was like, he had a great look. Likewise, I feel like the Bakers, Dylan and Becky Baker, who are married, are incredible New York actors whose career spans from film to television to a lot of theater, frankly. And theater-trained actors really, oh my God, they have such a baggage of knowledge and experiences because they have endurance. As you know, sometimes doing 8 shows a week is something that comes in handy when you're making a movie in freezing weather at night, where everyone's just, giving it their own. And I really believe in trying to marry the right actor to the right character. And I felt like specifically Dylan, who has been on the forefront, the kind of the face of the movie, he was someone who we have seen in both ends of the spectrum. Sometimes he plays criminals, sometimes he plays FBI agents, and we needed someone for a character like Olivetti who, without saying too much, had nuance. We needed someone who people could get attached to. And I think the beautiful thing about having someone like Dylan is that the audience steps into the movie with a relationship, to characters, faces, and you feel like it's easier for them to come into something growing attached to characters and then taking those expectations of any kind and flipping them on their head. Likewise, Lorenzo Pizzoni, who plays Agent Carter, I saw him in a one-man play called Humor Abuse, and I was blown away by how physical he was, doing stunts of his own, and I was like, there's our Carter, someone who's going to be very physical and very comfortable with doing stunts of any kind, and I also think he has a fantastic look to him. So I think piece by piece, with different stories, Agent Ross, we had Greg Hadley, who is not even an actor. He's a football coach.
I noticed that. I thought, I'm going to see what Greg's done, see how many roles he's done. Nightfire was his second one.
And honestly, it was his second one, and even though it's credited as second, he shot it before the other film that he did. Wow. Nightfire was shot, and from that he got the other role. But the original person who was going to play Agent Ross fell through, I want to say 6 days before we started shooting. And we're in Italy by now. Like, we're about to start rolling, and we got nobody. And his name had come up, and he had, I think, speak about look. I think he has a great look for the character. And we reached out and said, what do you think about coming to Italy right now? And he just dove in, and he was so game. Like, not just like great acting, but talk about dedication. Like, he jumped into a frozen river. Dylan is performing the opening scene of the movie in a cage in a T-shirt, and it's negative weather, negative degree weather, and all of us are in like winter coats and scarves and jackets, and he's there in a T-shirt. So everybody was there because they wanted to be a part of this story. And again, we understood the limited budget that we had, and we worked triple as hard because we were afraid of just falling flat on our faces. We wanted to prove not just to the school, but to ourselves that we were going to put, what's the expression in English? Putting your money where your mouth is at. Yes. So we felt like we had a lot to prove, and we felt very fortunate to be supported by the cast, who obviously was at a far higher level than we were as students. And same goes for the special effects crew, who I feel like we haven't talked enough about. Like, these guys who, I mentioned all the money in the world, but these guys are a family of special effects. Again, not to be confused with visual effects. We're talking about practical guns, explosions, car crashes, and all of it. And these guys worked on The Godfather in the 70s, went on to do Gangs of New York. They're a Rome-based family of special effects artists. And I went to them literally in T-shirt and shorts the summer before filming saying, my name is Brando. We were going to make a movie. We have no money. Please help us. And they invested in us. So that's when when I say it was a labor of love, an entire city came together so we could shoot what we shot.
It's kind of left me a bit speechless, is that lot? But and it takes me back to the short film again. Did you always pitch it as a short film? And was there any did anybody ever go, oh, it's a short film?
They all went, it was like, you guys are going, that's what it would say, is like, you guys are going literally across the ocean, assembling this massive production. Why not shoot more? Why don't you write 20 extra pages? But it's like, as I was saying in the beginning, like, there was a version of this movie that was an hour and 5 minutes, which technically qualifies it as a feature film, anything above 60 minutes. But it wasn't a good story, It's like, aside from the limitations of time that we had, because as you can imagine, more pages means more money. But I was like, I feel like a cheat. Writing 15 extra pages that don't belong in the story, I'm doing a disservice to the audience. If they don't deserve to be there for those extra 15 minutes, I don't want to take up 15 minutes of their time. So as you said, I feel like the TV pilot comparison came out to be a perfect one, because since making the movie, I'm telling you, I have a bag full of ideas of where this could go. And I feel like we have hopefully done the movie justice and the audience justice by giving them a taste of it And if anyone, wants to expand on this and help us bring more to the big screen, they know where to find us.
I think it definitely is scope for more. I mean, not just the storyline though, but so often, I mean, we've seen films, we've both seen films where you go, oh, I really like that film, but there's a couple of scenes in it that kind of slowed the pace down a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think maybe with Nightfire, there could have been a danger of that when you mentioned with the slightly longer version.
And just on that, sorry to cut you off, but it's like, that's why I wish we had done more test screenings. And that's what I'm saying. I can't beat myself up for it because obviously I'm a different person now than I was when we made the movie. But it's like, that's what I learned a lot. I'll mention the Mission Impossible movies because I feel like I've learned so much from the process of these professionals making those. But they are relentless in testing those movies. They literally, I'm not going to say that they hope for bad feedback to come back, but I have heard of stories where they cut the last moment right before they locked the picture. They lifted whole chunks of a movie that completely changed the meaning of it, So it doesn't matter what you think of the movie. What matters is what the audience thinks, and you need to be confronted with that. And I feel like we did a good job, and trust me, there was a whole chunk of scenes that we took out that simply did not deserve to be there. But movies can always be better. The story can always be tighter, and less is more.
I think the worst thing, and I've heard it from a few filmmakers, the worst thing they can ever hear is, yeah, I liked it. It's like, really? Because there's nothing to go on with that. But if I, for example, and I'm going to make this up, is go, oh, do you know what? A Nightfire. Oh, terrible. Really? Why didn't you like it? Well, this. And maybe some of those would be valid points. So you got, good point. I like that. I'll go away, do it, come back, fix it. But there was nothing I liked about, or didn't like about Nightfire, other than the fact it finished, and I wanted to carry on watching more. But
I think that's exactly it in regards to and I always make the example of Michael Bay movies. I can't speak for everyone, but what I'm saying is regardless of how you feel about a movie by Michael Bay, I'm just singling him out, but it could apply to anyone. Yeah. Even if someone comes out of a movie theater, I think we can all think about movies that really infuriated us, and you come out and you're like, oh, I hated this and this and this, and it was awful. You're talking about the movie. The filmmaker succeeded. Someone stepping out of a movie and being like, whatever. We were mentioning movies that we forgot about. Those are the worst. It means that they didn't have an impression. But I can very clearly think of movies, even fans that were livid, and you spend months and months and sometimes years ranting about how awful a movie is. It doesn't matter. You are talking about the movie, and it's creating a conversation, and the filmmaker succeeded. So that to me is what the job of movies, whether you love them or hate them, what matters is that you create a dialogue between two people or more.
I just think if somebody really hates a movie for any reason, as long as they can say why, I'm kind of okay with that. And then half the time you'll look at their reasoning. The Last Jedi, for example, that created a little bit of a social media rumble, didn't it? If you can remember that. A couple of people were grumpy. I used to read all the negative criticism of that and go, well, I don't agree with that one on my own personal level. Nope, I don't agree with that one either. And the majority of the reason that people didn't like that film was some of the reasons I did like it. But I do find it fascinating to watch the negative feedback.
And it's all about personal opinion. I think it's not our job to try and convince each other about our point is better. But I love it when, much like we talk about negative movies that people, I can think of what movie that everybody hated and I loved. I thought it was close to a masterpiece, and it doesn't matter. It's not special because people love it. It's special because you love it. And as far as I'm concerned, and this goes for everyone, even if a movie comes out and it fails at the box office, but you watch it and you're like, holy crap, it feels like it was made for me, good. And likewise for us, if Nightfire comes out and hopefully people have a good experience and they're transported to Italy and they find even one good thing about it, we're happy we've done our job, because you can never satisfy everyone.
The one good thing I liked about Nightfire was all of it. Can I get away with that one? Just like
you can definitely, yes.
But no, you're right about films. One of my favorite films ever is a film that pretty much everybody seems to dislike, including one of its stars, and that's Meet Joe Black. I love that film, but a lot of people don't like that, and I'm okay with that because it's my opinion, and I love it. So
exactly, and you get to enjoy it, so that's what matters.
Exactly. So what is the plan for Nightfire? It's a 2020 film.
It's a 2020 film. I feel like it's good to give yourself deadlines. So if it can be of any interest to anyone listening, our initial strategy was to if you're trying to release a movie of yours on any kind of digital platform, our distribution company suggested that we did that and try to pair it with a movie that had a similar target. So initially we were going to have the movie come out with the new James Bond film, and obviously that got pushed. And then we backtracked and we're like, okay, why don't we attach it to Black Widow with Marvel? And that got pushed. And at that point, we're like, it doesn't matter. Let's just stick with it because the movie's done. We were working our way also towards a specific festival, which was Series Fest. And we haven't heard about it yet. We're positive, but we haven't heard about it yet. And that deadline, that was for us to finish at the end of February. And it was good. It's good. I always talk about, as we said, challenging the material, but also don't spend 6 years working on a movie saying it's, it can be better, it can be better. So we set that end of February deadline. We sent the film off. It's going to be coming out soon. And we'll see. Series Fest is definitely a platform designed for TV pilots. There is such a thing as the right film festival for the right movie. And we feel like that was the case because we had never found a TV pilot specific festival. But we'll see what comes. I feel like it's our job to start thinking about the next things. And we have a couple of things lined up in regards to future projects. In a time like this, whether you're literally in pre-production or still thinking about writing a movie, like use that time creatively. And what I've asked myself often, what can we do right now aside from, promoting the movie? And I'm so grateful to talk to you because these questions are insightful and hopefully sharing the creative process helps everyone out there. But, have a career strategy and a creative strategy. It doesn't matter specifically what you want to be doing as a filmmaker, but how you plan exactly on getting there. What is the plan A, plan B, and plan C? Because things are going to fail along the way. And if you're prepped for that, you are not going to be, taken aback. You're going to move away from your plan A and you're going to slip right into plan B. And you're going to be so smooth and you're going to make the most of that time. So always thinking ahead, whether it's a project or the life of a single project, is something I'm very weary about and put a lot of love into.
Because it's kind of a crazy year for everybody creative, isn't it? We're used to delays, but generally not anything that's currently going on at the minute. It's like the mother or father of all delays, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, it goes back to what we were talking about in regards to obviously be safe. I don't encourage anyone to go out and shoot. But I can definitely think of more than a few examples. I've been nagging friends. I was like, you have been telling me that you were going to write this screenplay forever. Now's the time to do it. You have zero excuses, and you're going to be glad. I always make this joke. I'm going to say, if I stay up tonight and I finish this podcast episode, I finish editing that thing, Brando from the future is going to be glad that we did it. So don't do it for you. Do it for you of the future. Because, I'm rambling. I'm trying to pep myself and anyone out there up. But it's I really do believe that hard working is the key to success. Because especially in a time like this, once this economy jump starts back into it, what people are going to want to see is content. And you shouldn't rely on that one single idea. Be crafty. Develop 2 or 3 different ones which are just as loved, just as developed, and give you variety. That to me is the biggest tool a filmmaker can have, because you can spend a lifetime working on a romantic comedy, say, and then you meet someone who says, oh, I love you. I don't like romantic comedies though. Do we have anything else? And what you want to answer is, yes, sir, or ma'am, I do. And here's a project I've worked just as hard on, So that to me is what's important. Always thinking ahead, selling yourself, but especially having a lot of variety.
And I think a lot of people are going to come out of this lockdown going, I really should have done that thing that I said I would do. And because this isn't going to happen again, is it? This sort of lengthy, I would hope not, this lengthy lockdown period where we are asked to stay at home and just watch TV or write things or edit things. It's not a common occurrence by any means. So
no, at all. And I think you're right. Like, do use it, as you said. I think it also, like, on an emotional and a creative level, I think it helps to have a little bit of a routine, because otherwise we're really, really going to go insane. And I think there's no better feeling than waking up in the morning and looking at a 5-page document and being like, oh, I'm so glad I got that out of the way. Okay. It's writing, as you know, like, writing is a little easier when you're not staring the blank page. So it's always more exciting to rewrite yourself than it is to write something from scratch. And I think it goes for any kind of project. So I always call them chess games, play 10 chess games knowing that you're going to lose one of them, but you're going to win that one, and you're going to be very glad you played the 9 others. Otherwise you wouldn't have that opportunity.
Well, I sat down last week and wrote 21 pages in 4 hours.
There you go.
And I was chatting to a friend of mine. I said, I've written this. He's like, no, don't rush it. I'm like, no, I genuinely do. I get to the end of a first draft and go, right, now I can rewrite, and get rid of those blank pages. That kind of works for me.
Yeah, I think it's, as you said, it's like it's always more exciting. We spend the conversation talking about fixing the mistakes of yourself from the past, whether it's footage you got to edit or a full picture cut you got to sound mix. That to me is exciting. As you said, like whether it's writing or filmmaking, every layer of work you do on something, you're improving and not demolishing what you already had. So it can only be better. If you start working out, it can only be better with time.
I'm keeping myself distracted with lots of creative things, and even this conversation is happening because I was awake at 3:45 one morning, sort of last week, and I emailed Clint Morris from October Coast, and I'm like, Clint, how are you doing? Can I talk to anybody next week? And
I'm glad you reached out. I'm so glad.
He put us together, and I've spent near enough the past hour having a really, really good conversation. I've watched a wonderful film this evening, so I'm happy. And unfortunately, I'm going to go back to work tomorrow, but I'm all right with that because
I'm very grateful. Days. Yeah, these questions were fantastic, and I think that I too. I started a podcast too, but I think it's selfishly, it's like not just for listeners out there, but I do believe that knowledge is meant to be shared. And that to me is the exciting part of having so many podcasts like this one in regards to like, there's always room for improvement. There's always something you can learn from other people's experiences. So thank you. Thank you so much for checking out the movie. And it means a lot,
Thank you so much to your cast and crew for making a great movie.
Yeah, it's as much theirs as it is, ours. So everyone is crucial in this, process of filmmaking.
See, I get the easy bit. I just sit down for 45 minutes and just watch a film. It's like, you filmed it for 12 days. You've edited for a whole bunch more. You had the idea previous to that. And that's one thing that I always take into account with everybody anyway. It's, to watch a film takes you an hour and a half, 2 hours,
Yeah.
25 days if it's The Irishman, that sort of thing. So it's for film fans, it's easy. We get the easy bit. Sit down in a nice warm living rooms and watch it on the TV. And I do appreciate all the hard work that you and your crew put into films so that I can sit down for an hour and just, be entertained and escape from the news and stuff like that.
I think that's exactly it. It's a great agreement. I think any filmmaker has in regards to like, asking the audience, hopefully with no distractions, but I am just as weary of the fact that when you're making a movie and presenting it in front of people, they are donating your time to you. You better entertain them, because if you want them to stick around, you better put out something that's worth their time. And I definitely, every time we go out and think of a sequence or even just a concept, that's something to me, the entertaining and audience side of things is something that every filmmaker should keep in mind. So I certainly do.
Well, you succeeded on every level. So many thanks.
Thank you so much.
So where can people find out more about you or your films? Is there a social media or website that you'd like to sort of pitch out?
Absolutely. So if they want to support the movie, they can find the Nightfire movie Facebook page. I myself just put out a website if you guys want to check out any of the other work, and it's brandobenetton.com. And I think that's it. I'm not a good Instagrammer a lot. I post occasionally, but if you guys are into that, you can find us there. But yeah, I'm grateful to every single person who put love into this movie, including not only our distributor, but October Coast, who has been setting all these conversations up. And I hope you learned lots from them.
I did, yes. But October Coast are amazing. I've been sort of fans and followers of theirs for quite a few years now. They put a lot of films on my radar, so many thanks to them. Perfect. You enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.
You too.
Regards to all your family and friends in Italy and stuff like that. And
thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I will.
Pleasure
Keep being creative. Likewise. It was a pleasure.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.